Welcome, everybody. This is the session for computer science. So my name is Shawn Bowers, and I'm a professor in computer science, and then I'm also the chair of the computer science program. So basically, I was just asked to give kind of like a short overview of the computer science program. So I kind of just created some notes, and I'll walk through it, but it's really meant to be informal. So as I'm going, if people have questions, please feel free to just chime in and ask. And Rodrigo's here to help, so I think he can, if you have a question you want to put in the chat, he can kind of let me know, or I might see it too. I guess before I get started, does anyone have a question? Or any questions? Okay, so like I said, I'll just kind of talk a little bit about the program, just a brief overview, and then as I'm going, if I say something that you have a question about or you'd like to ask something, please feel free to do that. So the first thing is computer science at Gonzaga. There's actually a couple different degrees for computer science. So there's kind of two main degrees, which is the Bachelor of Science in Computer Science. That's kind of our main degree. That's in the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences, and we have about 150 majors in computer science that are doing the BS degree. There's also a BA degree, which is offered through the College of Arts and Sciences. It's a newer degree. I think we're going into the 5th year of the BA degree, and there's about 50 majors. There's some other programs that also involve a fair bit of computer science. Well, one is we have a minor in computer science. There's also a newer applied math degree where you pick a concentration, and one of the concentrations is computer science. And then computer engineering, which again is offered through the School of Engineering, has quite a lot of computer science. It's really kind of a mix between electrical engineering and computer science. So within our program, there's 8 faculty members. So I just put their pictures here. And really the faculty cover a lot of different areas in computer science. So we have someone who's an expert in speech recognition. We have people who are do kind of like machine learning, data science type work. We have systems people, so for networking and security, database systems. There's people that are involved in graphics and human-computer interaction, and then kind of more like on the software engineering, kind of business side with business intelligence, business analytics, and then just broadly software engineering. So we try to kind of cover a lot of different areas in the program. We also have a few CS-specific labs. One's in Herrick, which the dean talked about, which is kind of like the older building. And then there's one lab in Packard, which is the semi-newer building. And then we will also have a couple labs in the new engineering and science building. And then, so the 2 main labs that we have are both really instructional labs, or like general purpose labs. So many of our courses, especially the first couple of years, you spend a good amount of time in class in the labs doing hands-on work. And then even kind of all the way through the program, as you go on, some courses will be in the lab a lot during like lecture time. Other classes might be in the lab like 1 day a week or something like that. So we have, in the newer building, we have a 28-seat Windows lab, and then so that's the one kind of on the left. On the left here, and then in the Herrick, we have a 32-seat Mac lab, and both of the labs also run Linux as a virtual machine. We also have a number of servers that we run. Actually, it's in kind of like a virtual lab. It's in PACCAR, where we can spin up virtual machines, and we have servers running for students where they can also do coursework. Those are running, typically those run Linux. And then we also have a student project lab. And so this is basically open for students interested in doing projects. There's some more computers in there. There's like meeting space. It's kind of a lounge. There's a television, a large screen TV. There's also some bench space. So sometimes students get interested in maybe doing like Arduino projects or some other kinds of kind of hardware related projects. There's also some kind of experimental networking equipment that can be used, and it's also used as part of a class that we have. So all of the labs are basically open 24 hours a day. As a CS student, you have a key card access, and whenever there's not a class in the lab, you can go in and use the computers, use the equipment. And we try to make all the software that you're going to need for your classes available on the computers themselves in the labs. We also offer a virtual machine that all students have access to. So for your laptop or your own machine, you can basically kind of download a copy of all the tools that we use for all the classes. So I'll talk, I guess at the end, maybe if there's time, I'll just mention the labs that are going into the new building that'll be in addition to these. So the students at Gonzaga are generally very active. So there's lots of extracurricular activities. We have some CS-specific student clubs. There's also engineering student clubs, and there's just like tons of stuff always going on. So over the last few years, sometimes our clubs change quite a bit just based on what students are interested in. For the last few years, we've kind of had a stable set of clubs. So the first one, which is probably the more popular club, or one of the more popular ones, is the Women in Computing, or WIC. So this is open to men and women. And basically they put on a number of events. So they'll bring like recruiters onto campus or guest speakers for the club. They have folks that'll come maybe talk about graduate school or kind of life at Amazon or Microsoft or whatever. They also do kind of pizza parties and just get-togethers, and it's fairly active, and it has been the last few years. There's also the robotics club, which is actually an engineering club, but there's a big contingent of computer science students that are part of the club, and the big thing that they've been doing over the last few years is the RoboSub project, which is a competition. We also send teams every year to the regional ACM programming competition, which is usually like mid-November. There's always kind of a site close by, either in Spokane or in Cheney, which is like 20 minutes away, where the competition is held, and it's linked to other universities throughout the Pacific Northwest. And we do some practicing for that, and it's actually really a very fun event, and we try to encourage like freshmen and sophomores to get involved. And there's like different categories for students. It's an all-day event, and it's just a blast. So I actually look forward to it every year. It's just a really fun experience. We also have Honor Society, which is called Upsilon Pi Epsilon, or UPE. So we try to recruit students for that. And then kind of off and on, we have a club called Makers and Developers, or MAD. And basically the goal of that group is to work on projects that students are interested in. So a group of students will get together and kind of work, do various things. There's been some apps that have been created, and they've brought in speakers as well. So there's kind of a lot of stuff going on. So then I just wanted to, usually there's questions about these different programs that we have. And so I was going to just kind of give a brief overview of the programs and just focus on the BS, which again is offered through the engineering school, and then the BA, which is in the College of Arts and Sciences. So both programs have a common core computer science curriculum. And basically the first 2 years are very similar, where you take kind of intro to computer science courses, you take very similar math courses. Your second year, you take kind of the harder data structures class. There's a software development class that you take as well. They both have a good chunk of CS technical electives. So the BA has 6 technical electives, the BS has 7. And usually you spread those around across like your sophomore, but mainly your junior and senior years. We have a very kind of aggressive or very detailed senior design program, and that's a 2-semester course. Both the BA students and the BS students are combined and do that together as part of computer science. And basically the senior design program for us, you work in teams of students, so like 4 students typically. There's a sponsor or some other external person that you work with. There's also a faculty advisor. And then there's kind of like a professional group of people who work professionally in the computer science industry in Spokane who kind of help do some advising and evaluation. But you work together for an entire year, 2 semesters, and with the goal at the end of that to have a professional quality, high quality software product that gets delivered. So the main differences between the BS and the BA, in the BS, you typically take more math and science, which is just kind of part of the BS requirements. And then there's like a handful of courses that are required, which are really kind of part of accreditation, but then also, you know, we feel are important for the BS degree. And then you take 1 additional elective course. So in the BA degree, it's more designed for students who have a broader set of interests and maybe want to do like a double major or do a couple different minors. So as part of the BA program, you select what's called a concentration, or it's like a discipline that you apply computer science to. And there's a number of different tracks within that. And then you have a little bit of space to do just general electives. So for a student that's interested in doing another minor or maybe even double majoring, you can use these 2 things together to try to make that a little bit less of a load. So I mentioned this in the beginning with respect to the faculty, but we try to offer a wide range of CS electives since both programs have a lot of electives that you take. So we have, every semester, we have kind of like a different set of courses that we offer, and we offer a lot of special topics courses. So there'll be kind of newer topics that get offered maybe just one-off in a semester or for a few years, and then we kind of switch to different topics. So lately, we've had courses in mobile app development. We're starting a data science program. We have security and networking courses, which are kind of a common staple in the program. We have a number of different systems-oriented courses, so in architecture, DevOps, Internet of Things, databases. We teach a web development course along with kind of a project-based course with respect to that. And then we offer graphics and human-computer interaction. And that's pretty much all I have, or that I thought, you know, would be important to talk about. So I'm willing to just open it up for any questions that people have. I put my contact information, just my email, if you would like to contact me. And then the 2 pictures at the bottom. So the right-hand side is the ISC that the dean talked about. And then on the left-hand side, that's what it looks like right now. So it's basically just a big hole with lots of kind of interesting machinery, and they've been doing all kinds of work there. But where that white truck is, there's going to be a new, what we call advanced computing lab, which will have basically lots of different kind of toys for students to play with, and then for research projects and kind of just other space for computer science to do kind of like interesting stuff. So I'll stop talking. Somebody feel free to ask questions.
Yeah, feel free to use the chat function at the bottom of your screen if you want to write questions, or if you feel more comfortable. This group is pretty small still, so you could unmute yourself if you'd like, if you're more comfortable with that. But probably for just facilitated sake, the chat box might be easier to keep things kind of in order and rather have people speaking over each other. But yeah, feel free to write anything down if, there we go. So Shawn, first question is, what are the specific requirements for the laptops needed for computer science, specifically for Apple products?
Yeah, so I would say that we're a little bit more flexible than the other kind of engineering requirements. So a lot of students come in with Airs or MacBook Pros. So I think that's actually a good choice. Especially if you're kind of familiar already with Macs, I would probably go the Apple route. But people come in with a lot of different machines. You just want to make sure it's kind of, it's going to last the 4 years. I think that's the main thing. If you do have like super specific questions about models or something, you can also send an email to me, and I can either respond or forward it to our IT person. He can give you some advice on that. For the first year, so the specific courses that you take, it kind of depends on what you already have done. So it seems like pretty much every year, like half of the people coming in have done something in high school already. So we try to place you in the right course if you have already done work. And then if you get AP credit for computer science, the computer science AP course, then that puts you into what's called computer science 2. But the kind of the typical thing is you take some core courses, some university core, and then you take either take Calc 1 or maybe take pre-calc if you haven't taken Calc 1, or if you've taken Calc 1, you might take Calc 2. And then you take computer science 1. The second semester, you take the second course in the sequence, which is computer science 2. And then usually you'll take like Calc 2 or maybe even Calc 1 if you took pre-calc, or there's another math course which is called discrete math that's required for the next computer science course, the second year. Computer science is a little bit different than some of the other engineering disciplines where there's kind of like a lot of paths through computer science. So I know like in mechanical, you really have to take, like classes are very sequenced. While our classes are sequenced, there is a lot of flexibility in kind of when things are taken. That also plays out in study abroad opportunities. So our students do, go to lots of different places for study abroad and at lots of different times in the program. So another question was, with the laptop question, what would be a good time to order one? I would imagine probably this summer, and it kind of depends on what you're interested in getting. I would imagine like now maybe it's you might think of the June timeframe or something to get a laptop. I don't know. I'm just guessing. Oh, that's a good question. So when do students start internships? So typically you would do an internship at the end of your junior year, but a lot of students will also do internships at the end of their sophomore year. There's a couple courses that are sort of important, I think, typically for doing internships, and you take those often in your sophomore year. But we've had students, I think that's the typical thing is either the end of sophomore year and then definitely the end of junior year. But more and more, we've had companies interested in hiring students at the end of even their freshman year. It's not as popular, but it does happen. Are there any on-campus jobs relating to CS? So there are some. So we usually try to hire a few students to help kind of like with the computer science IT support work. We also usually a lot of our courses we'll hire students just for like grading, being TAs and being tutors. So a TA to us is basically just like you're kind of like you grade, but then maybe you hold like 1 hour a week office hour in addition to the faculty member just to do some tutoring essentially. There's also a fairly big IT group on campus that they'll often hire students like over the summer. And then they have what's called the Next Gen Tech Bar, which is in the Hemmingson Center, and that's the student center. And they usually hire like 2 or 3 students to work there, and they do various kind of things in the Tech Bar. What percentage of students finish in 4 years? I don't have the specific number for that, but my guess is it's very high, the percentage. So, most, by far, our students are graduating in 4 years. And then, what type of projects are done with C++ in the intro courses? So it depends on who's teaching the courses, but typically in the first course, you're really learning C++, and you do kind of simpler programs through like reading and doing input and output on files and stuff like that. Some instructors will do some work in Arduino, and so you're building small devices that do something like with LEDs and maybe some simple sensors and stuff. In the second semester computer science course, it's a mix between learning more C++ and then doing some data structure stuff. So you do things like linked lists, stacks, queues. You're doing dynamic memory management, that kind of stuff. Okay, so here's a longer question. I feel like computer science overlaps a ton with math. I'm interested in doing both CS and math as well. Is a double major in CS and applied math worth it, or is it just a waste of time due to the overlap between the 2 majors? Well, it probably depends on what your career goals are. So as a computer science, as a BS and computer science student, you're going to take a lot of math. And if you kind of play your cards right, you'll often be able to get a minor with maybe taking 1 extra course. And so a lot of our students will get a minor in math. The BS is a different degree because it's offered through the engineering school than the math degree. So getting you can't actually do a double major. You have to do what's called a dual degree. And that does take quite a bit of time. We have some students that do decide to do that, but they'll go at least 1 extra semester typically to do that. And I guess if you're interested in going into software development, software engineering, or grad school for computer science, I don't think the math degree is probably going to help. But I usually tell students you should take as much math as you can, just because I think it's, if you enjoy math, it's good to take it. It does help sort of with critical thinking, and it gives you some skills that I think can open doors, throughout your career. Hopefully I answered that. There's not living learning. So the question was, are there LLCs or living learning communities for CS majors? And there isn't a dedicated LLC for CS majors, but computer science majors are part of the engineering and applied sciences living learning community, which is basically Gawler Hall is kind of tabbed as the living learning community for Cs. And so a lot of our students participate in that, and they have, we do various kinds of activities with computer science as part of the living learning community. From everything I've heard, students really get a lot out of the living learning community. So. Other questions? So if students do have, if you do have questions, again, please feel free to shoot me an email at any time. I try to, I'm generally pretty responsive through email, depending on what's going on, but I will try to do my best to answer all your questions that way as well. How many classes a semester do CS majors usually take? So the degree itself is 128 credits. Most of our courses are 3 credits, some are 4. And so it usually works out to where you're taking, per semester, you're taking like 5 courses a semester. You might have one semester where you take 6, kind of depending on what you come in with already. But the average is 5. Typically it's 5. That's a difference between like semesters and quarters. So on a quarter-based system, where you have 3 terms across the year, usually generally you take fewer courses. You might take like 4 courses or something. But in a semester system, it's generally, usually it's 5.
And Shawn, I got a question for you. So you mentioned the flexibility that computer science has compared to some of the other majors in the School of Engineering, in terms of like when they can go abroad. Is that also including like where they can go? Because I know a lot of the majors in School of Engineering are kind of restricted to either Florence or New Zealand, typically based on the programs they can take there for engineering.
Yeah, exactly. So our students have gone to a lot of different schools, and it's a little bit easier in the sense that because of the sequencing requirements. So we have students that have gone, all over Europe. There is the program in New Zealand that students have gone to. We've had students go to Japan, and really just all over. And there's a very good study abroad office at Gonzaga, and they work with you to try to, figure out like what courses can you take that'll transfer for computer science, and that'll transfer or count for the core courses. And so it's really pretty smooth process for that. And then they also have kind of information on like where have students gone in the past. But yeah, so our students go to a lot of different schools, and then they'll go sometimes in the fall or sometimes in the spring and even in the summer. We try to make it easy so that that's a choice for people. What language are the CS classes taught in? So the first 3 courses that you take are all in C++, and then there's another course that's in Java that's required. We do some assembly in the first 2 years. And then there's C gets used a lot. And then like the web development course, that'd be like JavaScript. We do a bunch of Python. A lot of the data science, machine learning, kind of AI courses use Python. So mostly C and C++, some Java, and Python, and a little bit of JavaScript. Are there other questions?
We can give it a few more minutes if any of you students have any more questions. You just want to drop inside the chat box. But if not, I believe that was the end of the presentation. And please take note of Shawn's email that he included in the top right of his screen that he wrote out there for you. If you do have questions come up later on, not necessarily in the moment, you can't think of anything, but I'm one of those people at the moment, I leave kind of like a presentation or a classroom or a meeting. Then when I walk out the door, I'm just like, oh, now I have 20 questions. So once you're out of that moment, so take note of his email in case one of those questions do arise once you do leave this Zoom chat. Yeah, perfect. Another question.
So are you able to choose a focus for the BS degree? So, well, you can, because there's a good number of computer science electives, so there's 7 courses that you get to pick. So you can do more a focused set of courses on a topic. So machine learning or kind of data mining, AI, machine learning, that is something that you can take a number of courses in. We have been thinking about doing some what are called concentrations. Like it's kind of like a track where if you take certain courses in an area, that would be designated as a specific concentration, and then that would be on your transcript when you graduate, saying that you completed that concentration. And the concentrations we've been thinking about are data science would be one, security would be another, and then software engineering would be another concentration. And those wouldn't be required, but it's something that you could do in order to kind of get that tagged on your transcript, and then it kind of would lay out some courses that would be good to include in that kind of the specific topics focus. Yeah, these are all great questions. Who has another one?
Well, we have,
discounted, I think they have, they do, I think they do, they used to do, like you could get like an Apple education discount, and then I think they're a preferred provider with Dell, and so they do have like some models, and I haven't kept up with it that much to see like how good of a deal it is or whatever. Yeah, I think because like as a CS student you do, or as a student you qualify for the Apple discounts, which is like 10% or 15% off typically. Are there any courses that focus on game development? So we don't have any game development courses. We do have a graphics course, but it's not tied specifically to game development. What are the specs of the school desktops? What IDEs and other software installed on them? There's actually a ton of stuff installed. So we have a number of different IDEs. Some depending on the faculty and stuff, they like to use different IDEs, and it depends on the language. And it changes. So it depends on like what courses are being offered throughout the year, what goes into that. And then you can also install new software on the virtual machines that we provide. So it's fairly easy to add stuff as well. But there's just a lot of different tools. It just depends on the courses. I think there's like 40 different pieces of software that come with that. But each class has its own specific tools. Are there help on campus for tech difficulties regarding students' own computers? So just to answer that, so we have our own kind of like IT group. So we have one person who's pretty much dedicated to computer science, but also helps with all of engineering, and they're available for helping with tech difficulties. At one point, I think they were even like Dell certified, so if you had like a Dell laptop, they could get in there and fix it and keep it under the warranty or get it warrantied. But they are available to help, and they do a good job with that. The other question was, are there required materials to be downloaded after purchasing the laptop? There's things that you can download. So we have licenses for example, for like all the Microsoft products. There's also another system that we use that you can download that'll provide access to kind of all the general tools for all of engineering. And then you can download this additional component that basically provides like this Linux environment that you can use for a number of your courses. So it's not necessarily that it's like you have to download that stuff, but it is available for you. And usually they kind of, for much of that, they go through and talk about in orientation for engineering. And then the first week, like in CS1 or CS2, they generally kind of go through what's needed for the course and things like that. And again, the IT people can help if you're having trouble installing something or getting it working. They're there to help.
Yeah, one more.
Well, so it uses Linux because it makes C++ development a lot easier, and a lot of it's nice because it kind of provides a common environment. So even if you've got a Mac or you've got Windows, just using that kind of Linux environment makes everything standardized. It's just the easiest thing, I think, for computer science to standardize on, as opposed to maybe Windows. Especially for like the C and C++ coding, and then also there's a computer organization course that you take, which is assembly language. And so it's nice to have this kind of common environment for that. So the VM helps because that is a standard, and so like all the labs have, like I said, either Windows or a Mac. They're running either Mac OS or Windows, but then also they all have the virtual machine, so you can have this kind of common environment that's used during the like lectures or that you can install on your computer. So it just provides like a common environment to start from. Tries to avoid some of the headaches with getting stuff installed or incompatibilities or whatever. Sorry, that was a long answer.
So the Zoom meeting's allotted to be for the time of 5 p.m. So we've got 4 more minutes for any last questions that you might have for Shawn. You guys are pretty covered across the board questions, just kind of addressing some of the question idea topics that Shawn's written down already. But if you guys have any more kind of more specific, yeah, you guys kind of hit across the board in all those topics. Good questions.
So we also talk about other things. So like good places, skiing in Spokane, that's a good topic. I know a few mountain biking spots, so I can recommend. Any other types of, there's a ton of outdoor activities. Um,
I actually have a curiosity question, Shawn.
yeah,
Do a lot of the CS students tend to use the labs since it's open 24/7 with the card key, or do they prefer to be like in their own residence hall or everywhere on campus on their own computers?
usually the latter. Not as many use the labs, but we do. It kind of depends. It can be a nice spot to just like if you're doing a group project to go to the labs to work as a group. It's also kind of like a backup if something does happen with your computer. Like you can always just go to the lab. And then the labs get used a lot just because like we're teaching in them a lot.
Gotcha.
But most of the people just use their own laptops or dorm computers. Yeah. The lab, like the project lab that I showed earlier, that actually does get a lot. There's a lot of people that tend to use that. I think mainly because it's comfortable just to do group meetings and stuff. You know, it's nice to have that space.
Is it, I mean, I'm assuming most students will come in with their own laptop, especially just like today's day and age, everyone kind of has tech. But if something were to happen to students like laptop their first semester and they can't afford like another one, would it be essential for them to have one, or would they be able to use like the labs for like the rest of their time until they get another one?
Yeah, so that's a great question. We try to set it up so the labs can be used for everything. We do have loaner laptops. So if that does happen, then we can loan out laptops to students that have all the stuff on it. If you're a BS and computer science student, it is required that you come in with a laptop as part of, it's required. But generally, most people do have them. Stuff does go wrong. We do try to help as much as we can with that, and then just to make sure everyone does. You know, if something does happen, you can always use the labs and stuff. So.
And then you got one more question in the chat too.
Yeah. So that in terms of the basic requirements, it's on the. I don't know if I have the link handy, but it's on the engineering website. So there's a tab or whatever for laptops that talks about it. It does talk about like engineering versus computer science as well. So. Yeah, thank you. I think we're almost out of time. I lost my clock. Oh yeah, 5 o'clock. So thanks everybody again. If you have questions, please feel free to email me. And thank you, Rodrigo, for organizing.
Yeah, anytime. Well, thank you all for joining in and seeing the presentation, learning a little bit more about School of Engineering and Applied Science. But that will be the conclusion of this allotted time for the Zoom meeting. And then, like I mentioned before, any additional questions, don't hesitate to email them to Shawn. But that'll be it.
Bye. Thank you. All right, I think I'm going to take off. So thanks again.
Perfect, no problem. Thanks for being a part of it.
Oh yeah. All right, bye.
Have a good one.